So our last couple of final exam problems will come from the beginning of the class. So let's suppose that the plane P contains the line L, given by these parametric equations, and the point -1, 1, 2. I want you to find the equation of the plane. In the standard form. Since standard form is not always standard, this way. I like standard form for the specific reason that it has the normal vector right in the coefficients. This is one of the things that we miss out on in standard form of the equation of a line. That the coefficients in the equation of the line ax plus by equals c. The a and the b are components of a line perpendicular to the line that we're describing. It doesn't really come up. It's kind of ridiculous when we can describe a line with the slope, actual information on the line itself. But for a plane, it's useful to define a plane as in R3 as everything perpendicular to one line. So we're asking for standard form here. So Q is this other plane, and I want you to find a component of a unit normal vector for Q projected on a unit direction vector for line L. Line L is in the plane P. Line Q, if line L does not lie in the plane Q, then we've got the line L passing through Q at some point. And I want to know a component for a normal vector for Q in the direction of line L. I want to know the component of the normal vector for Q in the direction of L. I want a component for one vector in the direction of another vector. This is going to end up being a scalar because the direction is given by the line L. Questions? So I want a line in free space that is parallel to the line y equals 2x in the xy plane. So imagine what this must look like. You've got a line parallel to a line in the xy plane containing the point 0, 0, 1. Start by sketching a line and writing its equation in parametric vector form. This will give me an idea that the description, that you understand what's going on in the description. Line containing point 0, 0, 1 parallel to the y equals 2x in the xy plane. You should probably also draw the line y equals 2x in the xy plane. There. So P is going to be the plane containing this point that is perpendicular to line L. Draw the plane, include the plane in your sketch to show that you understand which plane we're talking about, and then find an equation for that plane. We've got a line, we've got a plane, we should have a point. So let's take a point. P naught will be a point on the line L, but not the point 0, 0, 1. I want you to describe, write down, find a point P naught star. I want you to figure out how to find a point that is mirrored, the mirror point for P naught. It's going to also be on L. It's going to be the same distance from 0, 0, 1 as the point P naught. 0, 0, 1 is going to be the middle. And it's got to be on the other side of the plane P. So it's going to be the mirror point. How would you figure, given a point on the line L, how do you find that mirror point? So if line L is, if this wall is plane P and line L is coming perpendicular through the plane, if a point here that's 3 feet from the wall, find a point at negative 3 feet, 3 feet on the other side of the wall from the wall. So find that mirror point. We've got these 3 requirements. So take it from a side view. That's what we're looking for. How would you find a point on the other side of that? Question. All right, so these problems are go the furthest back because we wrote the final exam back. We started with our vector calculus, then we had our multiple integrals, then we did our derivatives, and then we have our points, lines, and planes in our questions, comments. It's not the mark. From here on out, we've got all we have to do is start working on these problems. We also need to start working on or finish up all of our assigned homework problems. So we need to cover our homework problems, our exam problems, and then that will fill in anything that's missing that we don't know about, that we want to know about multivariable calculus and vector calculus. Any questions? So you may be thinking that it's really early to be talking about the final exam, but I think really you should start talking about the final exam. If the final exam is going to be a big deal, you should start talking about the final exam on like the first day of class. It goes back to that NBA playoffs thing. If all the teams are going to be in the playoffs, why not just start with the playoffs? Same kind of thing for math class. If everything's going to come down to the final exam, why don't you just cover that? And then why not be specific about very specific problems you want students to know? Notice that most of the problems that we put on the final exam were very generic problems. There wasn't anything interesting going on. It wasn't a work problem. There wasn't a flux problem with specifically defined quantities. Those you're supposed to be able to identify after you take this class. Think about the example that a lot of people put when they're complaining about math class on Facebook and having to learn the quadratic formula, as if that's some giant burden. And people lament the fact that they weren't taught how to do their taxes, which is absolutely true. You were not taught in high school how to do your taxes. No one ever questions the fact. No one questions that is the factual nature of that statement. That is absolutely true. The implication being, we should have taught you life skills in your math class, as if a bunch of high school kids would be really down for learning about how to file their taxes. Here's why I think we should do it anyway. You explain to high school kids, this is how taxes work. This is how to file your taxes. And see if they recognize that this is a dumb system for how it works. Because it'd be perfectly appropriate to do in a math class. Because in math class, filing your taxes that's the style of problem that it is. You say like, oh, well, you owe us some money. And you're like, oh, I'm well aware of this. How much is that? You need to figure it out. And then they give you a test. And then you fill out the problem. And then you turn it in. And then you're like, well, how did I do? It's like, oh, you got it wrong. So now you owe us more money. I can see why people don't like math class and don't like tax. Because it's dumb. I know what the answer is. You figure it out. And if you get it wrong, well, then you're going to be in trouble. You know what I mean? It's just like in your math class. The important thing to do is also point out in an advanced technological society, we're one of the few that does it this way. That way they can question why we're doing this. So that in 30 years when they're in control, they're like, well, you know what, we're not going to do that anymore. You know what I mean? Meanwhile, but then while those changes people are attempting to make those changes, people will say, well, what about all the people that make their living doing tax preparation? They'll have to find something else to do. And this is true. We should help them out. You know what I mean? And this argument always comes up. If you have a friend and their last name is Cooper, what did their ancestors do? Because you can tell. They used to make barrels. You know what they don't do anymore? Probably make fucking barrels. Because we found better ways to do things. It's become a niche market. Everything that was once a widespread thing then becomes like a niche thing. So there are still people out there that will make barrels, but they have to be like all fancy about making the barrels. We make fancy barrels because you can put your wine in it, and then your wine will taste different. Your wine will taste better. You know, all right, so give me some of them fancy barrels. When that used to be like a normal thing. It's like manual transmissions went from this super common thing that every car had and everybody had to know how to do. And we're like, well, you know what? We're not going to do that anymore. And now it's a niche thing. Now it's really weird if a car comes with a manual transmission. If I was a car manufacturer, I wouldn't sell the manual transmission on the base model like it used to be. It used to be that the base model always had the manual transmission, and you had to upgrade to the automatic. But then when automatics became so prevalent, people are like, well, no one wants this manual transmission anymore, except those weirdo sports car people. The manual transmission gets relegated to sports car. And people are like, oh, well, the automatic is just too slow to shift. But not anymore. It's 2022. The automatic is way faster and better at it than you will be. You could not possibly shift as fast as an automatic transmission designed to shift fast. So it's become this niche thing. It's become the fancy way of doing things. So what you do is you put the manual transmission on the top spec car, the sport one. Acura figured it out. You want a manual Integra? You buy the sport one. You buy the top of the line one, not the base model. It's become a fancy thing, and it used to be normal. You don't find that? It used to be that only crazy engineers would have to carry a calculator around. Most people don't need a calculator, but then calculators became so prevalent, everybody's got one on their phone. No problem. So they're boring stuff now. You know what I mean? How's everybody okay? Any questions? Comments? Deep thoughts? All right. So I haven't posted these on Canvas yet, but you know what the problems are. I didn't just post the documents from which I was reading them because the document also has the solutions, and I don't want to give you the solutions, although I'm not really seeing the problem with that if you use it to study properly. You know what I mean? There's like this huge gulf of trust between teachers and students. And blame lies in both categories. Students for being dishonest, but not universally so, and teachers for being distrustful, but not universally so. You know what I mean? There's a reason that the student solution manual only has half of the answers in it. So the distrustful teachers are like, I'm going to make them do it. You know what I mean? All right, that's going to do it for today. That's our those are our 10 final exam problems. I'll post those on the Canvas. It'll be 10 separate quizzes, so it'll look more impressive. That's it for today. I'll see y'all on tomorrow. Everybody